Hello, and you are very welcome to this week's episode of Let's Go Green here on Midlands 103. I hope you are safe and well as you tune into the show this week. We have a packed show for you this week. We will be joined shortly by Laurence O'Reilly of the Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland, all about their efforts to support communities become more sustainably and biodiversity minded, particularly the work he's doing with tidy towns groups. First things first, as I said, we are joined by the newly appointed ambassador, Laurence O'Reilly. Laurence, you're very welcome back to the show. Please tell us, how did you become an ambassador?
It's lovely to be back with you, Aisling. And ambassador sounds like a funny one. Put a bit of context on that for any of your listeners. So I am currently occupying the role as one of many EU Climate Pact ambassadors in Ireland, but also across the European Union. And for any of your listeners that might not be familiar with what that is, it is essentially a program that's funded through the European Union Commission, and it's all about supporting awareness, encouraging action, as well as connecting people who are involved in the conversation or the action of climate action across like all of the various different teams that fall in under what would be climate action.
That's a huge job. But like you're right to point out, there's so many facets to all of this work, and there's so many different community groups involved and different people from maybe perhaps environmental and scientific backgrounds. It's quite a job of work to do.
It is quite a job of work to do, but to be fair, it's a really well established, really well supported network. So you have, at a European level, you have the Secretariat who is involved with managing this at a really high level, but they're then supported by country coordinators. So each member state will have their own designated country coordinator. And within Ireland, we have the Southeast Energy Agency who occupy that role. A shout out to Edema, who is our fantastic colleague there within the Southeast Energy Agency, who has been really helping all of the Pact ambassadors, the EU Pact ambassadors in Ireland. And then below that level, then you have the EU Pact ambassadors. And that is made up of all of those various different skills and interests, whether it be academic, whether it be industry, whether it be general citizens, as well as, like, I'm coming at it from our role with the Sustainable Energy Communities Programme under the SCAI. So, like, you have all of these various different skills and supports that come in to kind of strengthen the broad range of knowledge that is there, but also, like, many hands as well. Achieve lots of stuff. So all of those, like, that network helps to lighten that load and get a lot of work done. So it's really, really effective, really, really positive. And it's having a great impact out there. Like, there's loads of little things happening all across the country. And we're going to talk about the sustainability and biodiversity workshops that we're doing currently, but the EU Pact program is involved in supporting and influencing policy, whether it be through youth engagement. They're also involved in, like, tidy town support programs, as well as collaborating with, like, local authorities and various different organizations like that to try and share knowledge, but actually get projects and get work off the ground as well. So really good space. I'd advise anybody who is interested to check it out. Google EU Climate Pact Programme and you'll find all of the details there around registration or what events might be happening within your locality, and go from there.
Now, you mentioned, community groups there, and we are now, like, the clocks have sprung forward. We're well and truly into the springtime period. And I even know that the Tidy Towns group in Tullamore over the weekend had a big spring clean. But you were also out and about over the weekend as well, delivering one of these workshops, because the Tidy Towns programme in particular, now it's not the only group that's involved in climate action. It's not, it's not the only competition that's out there, but it is one that requires quite a lot of work. And a lot of it is around maybe litter collecting and making, painting maybe benches around towns and villages. But in recent years, it has gotten more inclined towards sustainability and biodiversity. And that means those volunteers have to learn all about it. And part of your work, you've been helping people with that.
Yeah, Ashley, like I won't claim to be an expert in the Tidy Towns program. I'm based in Geeshel here, which is a really active, fantastic group. So shout out to the Geeshel Tidy Towns group for all the amazing work they do. But like you said, like it's so broad
Mm.
and it has been so broad for years, but it's kind of expanded upon that and
I
it's really
remember,
tried to.
was it Mary? I think the lady's name was Mary White from Abbey Leaks, who at the time when they won an award said that it felt like they needed a PhD to understand the application form for the Tidy Towns competition. Like, there's a lot that goes into it.
There's a lot that goes into it. And like what we've seen over I suppose, the most recent period of the Tidy Towns program's existence is this kind of alignment with the Sustainable Development Goals as well and all that brings with it. And we've seen that like there's an opportunity there for ourselves as mentors on the Sustainable Energy Communities program to engage with Tidy Towns groups to help them to understand, well, one specific subcategory, which is sustainability. But we've also felt, Aisling, that to just talk about energy on its own can actually be quite a challenge to bring the same people into the same conversation all of the time, because I think we have to acknowledge that energy action is quite challenging and it can take a lot of investment and capital investment. And actually, a lot of the time, people who are involved in the climate space might come into that conversation from the context of actually wanting to reconnect with nature and reconnect with the outdoors. So we've kind of seen a little bit of an opportunity here to build an educational program around the lovely green stuff, which is all the biodiversity action, the circular economy, all that stuff I think that people really like to get involved in. And how can we then segue the energy conversation within that? And then we noticed the opportunity to work more with the Tidy Towns as part of, well, these groups are already working in this space. So let's look at where the opportunities lie. And like it's self-serving for us to a certain degree as well, Aisling. The Sustainable Energy Communities program, we need people engaged, we need people involved, we need community organizations to participate. And where better to go than really active Tidy Town groups across the community? They're already working in this space. Let's try and help them to do that maybe more effectively or more efficiently.
And as well, like the climate change conversation at times can feel overwhelming. It can feel hopeless because of the sheer scale of the problem. But actually that local community piece is where we can have a real impact, and particularly around supporting biodiversity in our communities, because it's one of those things that when you do the job, you can physically see the benefits.
Yeah, I think people can reconnect and they can really enjoy, and the pride of play starts to evolve and develop from there as well. But also there's some fantastic projects out there, Aisling. Like my background is energy, and over the last 7-8 years, it's been community development from that context. But now I'm starting to become more exposed to the biodiversity space through the likes of these projects. And what I'm starting to see out there is that there are some fantastic Tidy Town groups out there and other similar groups that are doing wonderful things, from community gardens to food pantries to lovely biodiversity spaces, re-wetting, rewilding, reconnecting with the peatlands. And it's just trying to use that as a platform for ourselves then to build on the energy conversation, because there's so much happening within that space and it's so encouraging to see as well.
You were out in Shinrone over the weekend, I believe. We
were out in the beautiful Belfield House and Gardens, which is a site that is, it's ran by the RHSI, the Royal Horticultural Society of Ireland. And we were first introduced to them from a kind of an SEC, Sustainable Energy Communities Programme perspective a number of years ago, when they met with us to try and understand how they could, tackle energy on site a little bit more. But when I got to site there and I met with Anne and I met with Paul on site there, I was like, this place is beautiful. Like, we have to try and do something here. So the wheels started turning and we were thinking about what we could do. And then all of the stars aligned when we, myself and our colleagues, shout out to Hugh Baxter, based in Longford, an SEC mentor there, submitted an application to the Wheel to get funding for this series of workshops on biodiversity and sustainability training for Tidy Towns programs, for the Tidy Towns program. And over the past, so we were successful in that application and we got loads of support to help deliver this alongside, I mentioned the Wheel, but also the SCAI. And over the past 10 months, we've been delivering these workshops across the 5 Midlands counties: Laois, Offaly, Longford, Westmeath and Roscommon. Our task is to deliver 3 of these sustainability and biodiversity workshops within each county. And as it stands, we have delivered 2 in each of the 4 counties with the exception of 1 in Laois, and then we're hoping to do our second in Laois quite soon. Dates to be confirmed, and then we will run our final workshop at the kind of September-October period of this year. But Belfield was chosen for the second of the Offaly workshops, and you wouldn't get a better location really, because it connects all of the history of the old house that's there, but also the fantastic work that's happening on the green spaces that are there. So on Saturday we were able to get up to 45 people into the lovely space in Belfield House. We had expert speakers talking about community energy action. We had the hugely experienced Sharon Eastwood, an environmental consultant and also a Tidy Towns adjudicator, deliver loads of great tips on strategic planning and different types of projects from a biodiversity space. And then we were treated to a tour of the gardens, as well as some practical meadow management planting techniques by the really experienced, incredible head gardener out there, Paul Smith. And it was a wonderful day all around. I mean, we had a really good blend of the theoretical stuff, but also the engagement. There was loads of conversation amongst all of the different groups that were there, but also we got the practical piece outside. We got to go out to the gardens, we got to get our hands dirty. And again, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm an expert in the biodiversity space, but I feel like I could certainly go into my garden now and make a good stab at a decent meadow for the years ahead. So it was great, really, really helpful for our community groups to understand how they can affect this space within their tidy towns. And for us in the energy space, hopefully we can see more action stimulated as a result.
And more of these workshops en route, you hope?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be delivering our final tranche of workshops. Looking strategically, we'll be probably looking post Tidy Towns application and all the work that's happening now. We were really happy to get 45 bums on seats on Saturday just gone, because like that, you mentioned Tullamore Tidy Towns doing the spring clean. I know Geesho were at some bits as well over the weekend. Like, all the groups are out and about now, kind of running towards the May 11th deadline of submitting their application. So we're going to let the groups kind of chill out a bit after that. Mm-hmm. And then come August, September, October period, we'll run our last tranche of this. And there's talk of submitting another application to the Training Links and the Wheel organisation to possibly get more funding for expanding this out beyond just the Midlands, and seeing how can we support tidy town groups all across the country to understand more how they could positively impact biodiversity and sustainability action within their communities.
Well, Laurence O'Reilly, Ambassador Laurence O'Reilly of the SCAI, but thank you so much for joining us today to talk to us about that EU Pact grouping and the funding that's available through it, but also about the work that you've been up to recently in helping out all of those community groups that are working to do their bit for biodiversity and sustainability. I'm sure we'll have you back on the show again. Thanks very much for your time, Laurence.
Thanks, Aisling. Look forward to it.
You're listening to Let's Go Green here on Midlands 103.